The thing about life is that it's often not fair. It's not fair that you ended your last year of study at home, apart from your classmates, away from their collective energy, apart from their vital and vivid presence. It is not fair and indeed ironic that you, students of architecture and design, disciplines that focus on strengthening a collective sense of place and identity, who work side by side in studios that stimulate imagination and promote inner growth, in open spaces that encourage collaboration and camaraderie, in a building that embodies our values and dignifies our creative culture. That you should be separated from the integrity of this unique place that shapes so much of who you are is a pity. I empathize with you, with your sorrow and sadness, your heartache and grief. Yes, this is almost the opposite of what you expected. You now know something absolute. Living with uncertainty is a quintessential aspect of human existence. Like so much of life, there is little in our present situation, a worldwide pandemic, that is absolutely certain. Our lack of knowledge is unnerving. We don't know what to expect. We feel vulnerable to forces outside of our control. We hope for the best and prepare for the worst. Your response to this situation is a choice that will define who you are and what you'll become. Consider the opportunity. This prompt may help. A recurring theme in art and literature is the struggle between good and evil. It's so prevalent, so deeply embedded in our collective unconscious, that it might be better described as an archetype. In a recent article, Peggy Noonan wrote, the screenwriter Lawrence Kasdan once said the films of Akira Kurosawa were distinguished by this dynamic. The villain has arrived while the hero is evolving. The villain's weakness is that he or she is static, satisfied with who they've become, while the hero adjusts, matures, and develops, transforming their life for a higher purpose. You came here to change the world, but first you had to change yourself. Think of who you were when you arrived in our college and who you are now. Think about the multitude of skills you acquired and the inner growth that ensued. Each time you overcame anxiety and fear. Each time you struggled for new knowledge. And each time you suffered alone and wanted to quit. But you endured. To my mind, you're all heroes. You did one of the most meaningful things anyone can do in life, actualizing potential, your specific human potential, the potential that belongs to no one but you. The inner strength you earned by doing this is yours for life. And now you are faced with a new beginning, the kind of beginning that comes once in a lifetime. You're entering a world that is changed forever. You spent years exercising your imagination, cultivating your creativity, and thinking always about what a better and more humane world would look like. You anticipated this day for a long time and had great plans for the future, but this year is different. This year, the future expects something of you. As the renowned neurologist and psychotherapist Viktor Frankl would likely remind us. The world needs the kind of courage, resilience, generosity, and the many other qualities you displayed throughout your education, and especially in the past few months. The talent you now have to offer the world is recognized and valued more than it has been in centuries, perhaps since the Renaissance. Our work, and the arts in general, continue to be one of the most compelling, integrating, humanizing, and universal forces conceived by humanity. To illustrate the reality of this statement, I'll leave you with two touching examples. 1 year into the 3-year siege of Leningrad during World War II, people were starving, the city was in ruins, and tens of thousands of soldiers and civilians were dead or dying. On August 9th, in the second summer of the siege, on the day Leningrad was supposed to surrender to Hitler, the Russians, in an act of defiance, set up speakers aimed at the German troops and boomed a live premiere of Dmitri Shostakovich's Seventh Symphony. The symphony was conducted by Karl Eliasberg and played by a ragtag group of retired musicians, amateurs, teachers, and the remains of the city's radio orchestra. A German officer, upon hearing the music, reputedly said, "We'll never beat these people." They never did. After the symphony, conductor Eliasberg perceptively remarked, "The whole city had found its humanity." Recently, I visited the National September 11th Memorial and Museum for the first time. Before 9/11, I had been in that district of Manhattan a number of times, usually by mistake. What I experienced was a soulless place characterized by the kind of bland, contemporary buildings almost everyone loves to hate. Most of these utilitarian buildings are still standing, providing a perfect counterpoint to the remarkable urbanity that emerged from the debris. What was once a bleak, monoscaled cityscape is now a thriving urban destination, distinguished by a profound sense of place. The tranquil essence of the urban landscape created by the memorial and museum succeeds in conveying feelings of mourning and healing, of hope and togetherness. Marjorie Miller, whose husband perished in the attack, returns often. She said to me, "This is his place, and this is my place. He breathed here, he died here. This is where I feel him." These examples remind us of the meaning and purpose of our work, to bring people together and animate access to our inner life, to connect us in memorable places, places that substantiate our sense of self, places that authenticate our unique cultural identity and confirm our common humanity. The disciplines you studied here, architecture, interior architecture, and landscape architecture, have dual motivations. They're designed for practical purposes, and at the same time, aspire to elevate the human spirit. Our work is significant because it has the capability to transcend its utilitarian function and touch our soul. One could go so far as to say that conveying access to our inner selves is one of the most fundamental tasks of architecture and design. The calming atmosphere of a serene room, the sense of sanctuary we feel in a beautiful garden, or the refuge from the world that a home provides, help us to reconnect with our inner selves and regain our grounding in the world. Likewise, the emotional power we feel when we encounter an elegant structure rising a half-mile into the sky, or the archaic memories that occupy our consciousness as we walk through an ancient district in a modern city, help to establish bonds with our ancestors, to feel pride in the work they accomplished, in work we too are capable of. The challenge to each of you is to find the happiness that comes from self-knowledge, from finding the pleasure of well-being that comes from maturing as a person within professions that contribute so much to the common good. I wish you all great happiness today and throughout your career.